This conference will now be recorded.
Yes. All right. So, announcements. I have no announcements. So, item number 3 is finished. We'll go to item number 4, which is swearing in ceremony of police officer Austin Smith. So, Chief, if you click on the motion. Yeah. No fire. Yeah. I, Austin Smith. I, Austin Smith. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will faithfully execute the duties. That I will faithfully execute the duties. Of police officer for the city of Blanco. Of police officer for the city of Blanco. The state of Texas. The state of Texas. And with the best of my ability. And with the best of my ability. Preserve, protect, and defend. Preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution and laws. The Constitution and laws. Of the United States. Of the United States. And of the state. And of the state. So help me God. So help me God. Your thought on it. Well, here. Little assistance. Sure.
Thank you for your service.
Officer Smith, to start with us, he's been with Blanco County for 2 years, and worked a little bit with San Marcos prior to that. So we're happy to have him on board. And should be seeing out on the streets.
So we have welcome with us. Thank you.
Thank you. So then we will go to item number 5, which is public comments. So the city welcomes public comments at this point. Speakers must sign up before the meeting begins. The subject the speaker wishes to address. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, which cannot be dominated from one speaker to another. And the council cannot decide the items not listed on the agenda for the future meeting. Do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, I do. Did you go get him?
Yeah, okay.
Steve, raise your hand.
I thought there was a 2 name out.
There was, this lady, Robin McCall, but, she said, we're not sure if she's gonna speak or not. She was here for the chamber, Libby at the chamber. But I told her there's nothing on the agenda with that, so she wasn't sure if she was gonna speak or not. Welcome.
You have like a time limit or
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. My name is Steve Friesen, and I own some property on 13th Street where there's 5 new houses going in adjacent to my property. And I've owned my property, there's 2 duplexes there since 1993. I've never had a problem with water, coming across my property or getting into my apartments. Well, when those were built, I consulted with the builder and told him that, a lot of water comes off that hill. We need to really watch what we're doing as far as the drainage and stuff like that. Well, he did not put any drainage between the houses. So now everything runs from number 5 to number 4 to 3 to 2 down to me. And I've already had water in my apartment one time. And I would have had it the second time too, but I had put up some boards against the fence between me and the adjacent property. Are y'all familiar with where I'm talking about or not? Okay. 13th Street's marked on here, and the one in red is the one that I have, those 2 lots.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What you're saying is it's running off the property, off the roofs, down to the gutter of the street, and then down.
Well, it's not going to the street. That's the problem. He didn't put any drainage getting it out to 13th Street.
But it's not coming from behind the property.
Well, it was doing that too. I talked to Jason Wheeler, owns that property, Stay Built, and he opened up, there was a culvert there was squashed, and he opened that up. And well, it hadn't really rained real hard since he did his part. But, a lot of it was coming off the roofs, like you say, going from one house to the next house. And none of it goes out to the street like it used to. There used to be a berm right by my property line into Stay Built's property line. They caught that water and took it out to 13th Street. Now that he built the house 5 feet from my property, I guess that's a setback. I don't know. Anyway, that's berm, that ditch there is sort of covered up now because he built the house so close, which is okay, I guess, because that's a setback, but it covered up that drainage ditch there. And there used to be culverts coming off of Stay Built's property that took the water off the top there and put it out to the street. Well, he took those out because they were in the way. And so all that water is not going out to 13th Street anymore. It's coming down to my property. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. And if there's any help that city can do, it seemed like that would have been part of the inspection when they approved the housing. because section 11.086 of the Texas Water Code says you can't divert water from your property onto somebody else's property or change it in any way. And that's basically what's happening. So I wanted to bring that to y'all's attention. And I've been trying to work with the builder, and he's not doing anything. So I'm kind of stuck. That's all I wanted to say.
I appreciate the information and I understand what type of issue you have. I don't know if it's not civil, but all the work is about that.
Yeah, and Mr. Davis, can I talk a little bit more? Mr. Davis said it was a civil matter. Well, I kind of disagree with that because, you know, it seemed like the city should have had their hand in looking at the drainage, you know, and not have me now go and try to sue somebody. I don't want to do all that. I just want the problem resolved. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. He said the city didn't have responsibility and it's a civil matter. But like I say, I kind of disagree with that, but I wanted to tell you all about it and that you mull on it and think about it.
Thank you for
Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
Any other public comments for you?
No, unless Robin wants to talk, did she?
Well, I got
comments? Okay, she's just gonna listen.
Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Yes,
You require a site plan, correct?
yes.
Does that have topo on it? You require a topo?
This being a residential went to Bureau Veritas and it does require that. It's a little bit different than the commercial plan review.
Right.
But regardless, the third party inspection would have been through Bureau Veritas as well. And in this particular case, which we're really not even supposed to be discussing, it's a public comment, but I'd be happy to meet with you about it later. Yeah.
We'll do that. Thank you. We can discuss.
Council can respond to that. Is anybody online that was sent it? No, that's it. It looks like item number 5 is complete public comments, so then we will go to staff presentation and updates. We'll start with item number 1, Public Works, Ronnie Rodriguez.
Well, I'm kind of fortunate this evening to have both water and wastewater plants in executive session discussion, but don't have much to report. I do have a question for council, actually mainly looking for direction on the holiday season conferring with cutoffs. It's been the practice in the city of Blanco in the past to not cut off for non-payment of water bills for our customers here in the city for the months of November and December. And before we get into those months, wanted to check your direction and see if that's something that we would continue to go with. I believe there's no ordinance pertaining to that.
It's just been a
Right.
until we have to vote, we really can't. It's a vote.
No, but it's a directional issue. I mean, okay.
I mean, unless there's a problem with it, then I would be supportive of maintaining the current policy.
I bring it back to you as council. That way I don't find myself doing the whole, well, this is the way we've done it, so we want to continue doing it this way. At least we kick it back up every year. Again, my water and wastewater, any kind of updates and issues will be done in executive session. Luckily for me in this meeting, but I will open it up if you have any questions or anything from us. The only other update that I can give you that might not come across in the executive sessions this evening is the updates on our water and wastewater plant permits. Kind of tied into what we're doing, but we are still dealing with TCEQ on multiple permit and violation issues on our water treatment plant, merely for the fact of us not having the new water treatment plant. So we actually had a meeting with TCEQ this morning that as of February 2019, we're out of compliance in our CT study, which is a concentration time study that we have to keep chlorine contact in time with water. And very basis, we've got the CT study completed and submitted to TCEQ for the brand new water treatment plant, which, as we all know, we still don't have. These are I'm not gonna say normal issues, but these are the ongoing issues that we've continually had with TCEQ on our water side. Again, I'm sure we'll have updates and such in executive session on the water treatment plant, and we'll be able to remedy those. Nothing that's got us into any kind of enforcement and violations and such on the water treatment side. Just having to let them know on a pretty frequent monthly basis that we don't have our water treatment plant yet. So, but again, I just wanted to even open this up to questions if you have any, or any other concerns, if there are any. All right, thank you so much.
To police department. Good evening. Instead of just doing a regular monthly report on numbers of activity, I just want to kind of go over some of the things that we've been doing in the 2 months that I've been here, I guess. First thing I did when I started, I wanted to form an advisory board made up of some residents. We were able to do that. And we met for the first time October 2nd. The members were Mr. Peterson, Mr. Sorrell, Mr. Watson, and Councilman Lewis was part of that as well. First meeting, kind of introduced ourselves, went over policies and procedures and kind of some directions that I wanted to take to the department and try to get some feedback from representatives of the community. And we'll talk about some of those as I go through the list. We just finished a total rewrite of the departmental policy manual. So it was 86 different policies. The manual's about this big. So I think it's pretty comprehensive. It incorporates a lot of the Texas best practices and things that we're working towards best practices recognition accreditation. We held training on that with all the officers on October 9th. I had all the officers in to conduct training for a full day on the new policies and procedures and things that we would expect them to follow moving forward. And then I think it's always best to get them involved. So we delegated some of that. So some of the officers were assigned to give instruction on some of those policies. So I think it was a good day. It seemed like it was well received, and I think there was a lot of information put out. Also completed a new field training manual for all the officers. So moving forward, all the officers who were hired will go through a documented field training program. The program will last about 6 months. Once we hire an officer, they'll ride with different FTOs, field training officers, for about 3 months. There's a checklist that has to be completed. It's broken down into 3 different phases. So it incorporates all of our policies and procedures, and it documents that they've been trained and that they've received that training. At the end of those 3 months, they'll then ride in a police car by themselves on the same shift as a field training officer, because it's really different when you're out there having to do it yourself. And so in the shadow phase, the officer, the officer that's in field training will be the primary responding officer. They'll be shadowed by a field training officer. So it's kind of, they're still being evaluated, but from more of afar, kind of that coming out of residency, I guess, into their own practice. We did sign up for a program, it's, OSS, and it's an online training provider. And I signed an agreement with them where it gives the officers unlimited training for the next year for required classes and additional classes that we choose for them to accomplish. I found some of the officers were kind of lagging behind in where they should be on training, and this, I think we get the most bang for our buck. It's unlimited training, and it documents that training. The other good thing about that is that we were able to upload all of our policies as training material, and so they read that training material, and then at the end there's an acknowledgement. And the best part about that is it times it out, so I can see a report of how long they were in that policy. So if I give them a 32-page policy, I can tell they were in it for 5 seconds and acknowledge. So I know if they didn't read it. So I think it's good for the training, and it's good for tracking and get some of our policies online where they're more accessible to them. We were successful thanks to working with Will and freeing up some money. So we managed to purchase enough weapons to issue weapons to everyone in the department. So now the department has standardized weapons that are issued by the city. So that reduces our liability, our training costs, and other things. So that's standardized. I don't know if y'all noticed, we changed the graphics on the patrol vehicles. All the patrol vehicles now have reflective graphics on them that say City of Blanco Police. So we're trying to be a little bit more visible in the community and just be more noticeable when they're out and about. We institute a home watch program. It's something that they've had, but it wasn't really advertised. We ran it on Facebook. They did an article about it in the paper. So when a resident goes out of town, call us, fill out a form, and we'll do increased coverage on your home while you're gone. And then we enrolled, we sent off our enrollment, and the mayor signed a contract last week for the best practices program. So I want to talk a little bit about that, let y'all know what that is. It's going to be an ongoing process for us and hopefully a new way of life for the department. So the Texas Recognition Program is basically, it's kind of like an accreditation process. So police departments are already accredited through the state, but this is a voluntary program. You can go pick this thing. We skipped like way. Okay, there we go. That's the beginning. I was reading it before I got here. I must have left it on the last one. Make sure I knew what I was talking about.
So what do you want?
You go to the next one, please. Okay, so the overview of the program, it requires agencies to prove their compliance with 168 best practices for Texas law enforcement to independent assessors. Go ahead. What are the best practices? So it's a compilation of practices which address 12 critical areas of law enforcement that form basis of legal action against the police. Compliance with these best practices reduces risk. So these are the 12. So out of all the issues that police departments deal with, and then working with our insurance company, Texas Municipal League, these are the 12 critical issues. And so the program is built around reducing liability in these areas by having the best practices in place. And I don't have to read all those to y'all. So the sample, this is how it's kind of set up. So it'll give us a statement, sexual and other unlawful harassment. So again, that's a liability issue for cities. So the agency has a written directive with reporting procedures that include when it's appropriate to make a report outside the chain of command or outside the agency, training provided to all personnel to prohibit sexual or other unlawful harassment. And the question is, training must be provided to all department personnel, not just sworn. So again, our administrative staff, if we have dispatcher, anyone who's involved in the agency has to have this training. And for the proof of compliance is a copy of a written directive and proof of training. So for all these directives, there's a form similar to this that lists what the standard is, and then we have to show our proof of compliance in writing by our policy, and then we have to show documentation of the training if the training is required, or if just receipt of the policy is sufficient, depending on what the category is. Again, this is the same thing, use of force, it's the same format. So the philosophy of the program is to make the requirements achievable, assist agencies in compliance, and provide resources such as the sample policy manual, reduce risk and associated cost. So again, I think that's important to everybody in the room to reduce that risk and liability. Texas Municipal League feels so strongly about this program that they will provide our funding for our first year in the program. So to me, anytime your insurer will pay for you to do something, that speaks highly of the program. So we've gone through the process right now. We've applied, the contract's been signed, the internal review of the policies and procedures that I incorporated those into the policies when I wrote the policy manual with these things in mind, so we would have those policies in place moving forward. This is the end goal of all that. What we'll do now is we'll come up with our proofs of compliance again. So the training we did on Friday, we documented that training, and the areas that that's applicable to will be our proof of compliance. We send those sheets off to an independent reviewer, reviews those for all 168 standards. And then when they're all reviewed electronically, then 2 independent assessors will come to Blanco. They'll spend 2 days here making sure that we just don't have a policy manual on the shelf, that the officers are actually following the policies and doing what the policy says. At the end of the 2 days, they'll go back, they'll write a pretty comprehensive report. They'll forward it to the recognition committee. The recognition committee will vote. The recognition committee is made up of 9 active chiefs throughout the state of Texas. They will then review it, vote on it, and we will be granted recognized status. Again, you can skip through these. I think I covered this. That's it. That's it. You keep going. So the benefits: council, mayor, manager, citizens in the city are assured the police department is complying with the best practices of Texas law enforcement. Go ahead. So the recognition is good for 4 years. At the end of the first year, we'll have to submit proofs of compliance. So some of the things we're required to do is, if there's use of force, if there's pursuits, if there's injuries, I have to do an analysis on those annually and send off my analysis to be reviewed. We do that for 4 years. At the end of the 4th year, the process starts over, and we'll have to make sure all of our policies are now updated with the current standards, and then assessors will come back. So every 4 years, a team of assessors will come back to the city. This is what to me is very almost troubling. There's 2,400 law enforcement agencies in Texas, and right now only 151 agencies are recognized in the whole state. There's 33 currently in the program, and about 15 are preparing for entry. What's changed on this is that the presidential order that was signed back in, I believe it was June, where the president talked about certification for police departments to receive federal funding. We think that's going to roll out here in about 2 months. And so the Attorney General's office and the state has agreed that the recognition program will serve as a certification body for that process. So for us to be eligible for any federal funding in the police department, we have to take some immediate steps to get certified as we're working towards our process for accreditation. That's it. Very good. So that's what we've been doing. Any questions? Thank you. Yeah, like for the last week, I've gotten home and not know what to do with myself. So. Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith that was hired, was he your replacement or who was your replacement?
Okay, so he filled the vacancy that we had. So we had one vacancy, and we had an officer resign. And then so I've made an offer to one of our non-paid officers, and she's accepted. She's going to start on the 21st of this month. And then we will have, after that, we'll have one vacancy after that. So, and I'm going to get with Lori tomorrow, and we'll probably put that on TML. Yeah, he's from Blanco, went to school here, spent the last couple of years with the county. So he's a plug and play. So he should be good. So.
All right. We'll go to item number 3, which is updates from City Hall.
I'm gonna skip to one of the items on our agenda and just give you the explanation. So the special events permit, Matt and I have talked about that. I'm gonna make a few little tweaks to what is there, and I'm gonna send it off to Brad to review the legalities and the application of the ordinance and permits associated with it. So we'll hopefully pick that up in November and get that process going, but it'll be after Brad has reviewed it. And
Well, I've got a comment. I've checked with some other cities and looked in reference to a special events ordinance.
Mhm.
And personally, I don't know that I'm going to be supportive of it. And I'd like to ask you to consider, I guess it was initially generated the first discussion that came up post the issue with Wastewater. And what I'd like to do is look at the rate ordinance versus a special event ordinance, which would be the parades on held on city streets. It would not include rules, local sporting events, things of that nature. I'd be more supportive of that just personally than a special events
okay,
permit. And I'd like to offer you to sell something.
okay.
Throw something else on your plate since you're honest.
Well, the special events includes the parade. It's just one facet of it, so we can separate that out.
Right.
And look at that. If there's other events to consider into that, but I'll outline that out so we can discuss all of them.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else? Let me write that down. We'll outline them for the November meeting. Yes. We received a petition for consent for the creation of a Blanco County MUD Municipal Utility District. That is in relation to the 385 acres at 32. I've talked to Brad about it. We're going to send it to P&Z for the November meeting. I have not talked to them yet, so it will be on their agenda to review in the November meeting. And then the following week is our November meeting, and it'll be presented to council at that point. we'll get all the details to you prior to, just FYI, wanted to notice that it was received. Notice the speed limit signs on the south side of town were finally installed. And they even corrected the 50 to 70 to 60 zones because that was really hard for me to keep up. But we got that taken care of. I have in addition requested in a petition in TxDOT to repave the 281 bridge and to repave the Main Street area right at the beginning of the state park, in front of the state park. Those are two areas that are TxDOT's areas, and trying to petition to get those things done because that'll make a really immediate impact for the community, as well as the other paving projects that we're working on. And that's,
Yeah.
well, I have looked into that, and that's not all TxDOT. That takes a participation with Tractor Supply too.
What about right here on the square? Can we add that to the TxDOT list?
Which part?
Well, I mean, it's 35 miles an hour.
We want to reduce it to 25 when you cross the bridge, yes.
Yeah, 25.
That is on my list to talk to them. I haven't petitioned them for that. And then Martin suggested also discussing adding a four-way stop at Pecan Street and as another, because of the post office, people backing out of the post office and so on.
I mean, you know, locals notice slow down when they come over the bridge, but people coming in on 165, they're just. They see 35 miles an hour.
It's 35 right through, and it needs to, I agree, something needs to be addressed with it.
Where will we, you know, we roll over River Road, they will know, post signs and, you know,
Chief.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that. I'm working on trying to draft an ordinance that incorporates some of these other streets at one time, so we don't have to keep on coming back to you. When I started working on that, I learned that that area is actually 3 different streets that we need to address. So it was Main, Fulshire, and then River Run. So we had to do all 3 of those. So I'm looking at what else needs to be done and try to come to y'all at one time with a codified ordinance that covers all the streets that are different than the regular ones.
Yes, I think Chief has a few other things on his plate too, that he has been diligently work on it. And I know Lori has reminded him 37 times. So he won't even come in to City Hall anymore. He won't even come in to City Hall anymore because Lori keeps nagging. But hey, whatever works. Mr. Smith knows about it, but just FYI, we're for council to be aware that we have enlisted Mr. Councilman Smith into helping us with some issues on our 306, our Caney Lake pipeline. We have percentage of ownerships there that Mr. Smith is helping us with, and I just want to make council aware. I don't have a lot to explain or detail with it yet. But Mr. Smith is kind of taking the lead on that, helping us out a lot there. So just want to make sure council is aware of it. P&Z is currently very productive, and I'm very proud of how productive they've become since I've been here April of last year. And some of the things that we started, first things that I noticed and started talking about then, and here we are finally making some headway, and it's been great. Susan Moore has really pushed for a few things on the zoning, and they have been diligently working on the rezoning maps. They have also presented their updates to the UDC that need to be incorporated for this coming year. They've been submitted to Lori. She is incorporating them into the right spots into the UDC. At the November meeting, she'll be submitting them back to the P&Z for approval to make sure we've got all the edits correctly. At that point, it'll be coming to the council next meeting to approve the edits and changes. And Christine has been the one who has actually gone through and looked for every comma and misspelled word and misapplied word and the things that none of us really want to ever have to do. The last thing on my list is the Blanco task force, and that kicked off last Wednesday. And I am going to let Matt and Dita provide a little update as to what needs to be shared with council from that meeting. I'm smiling behind this.
Did you do your homework yet?
Oh, you know what?
We got a packet for you.
Homework.
Everybody gets one of these.
These were sent from,
You've had.
Well, he was just told he could pick it up there from city.
Okay.
That works.
Yes, I do. But I know how to get that card on. Okay, okay. So,
is there anything that y'all would like to update council on from the meeting?
it's nothing major. It was a good meeting. It was a get to know meeting. You know, that's how it goes. But my takeaway is that they're moving forward with the RFQ. They're speaking to some engineer. I guess they had a meeting with Turk. Turk seemed to have a lot of good information, making them happy. They are moving forward on securing some grant money for us. So they looked at I saw a couple of emails come through for some potential grant money that could help us out along the way. It's all beginning stages at this point. So I guess they're gonna come back to us next month. Is that what I heard? Next month, I think.
Yeah, I think that's in November.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Don't keep it on your calendar, Matt. Don't forget.
I believe we went for 11.
Yes, we moved to 11.
we did go to 11, you're right.
And there was discussion of being on the November council agenda, and then it was pushed to December. But even then, it was questionable because we didn't know if we'd have all of our ducks in a row by December.
Just one point to that is, as it refers to talking to Tom Turk, our engineer, I've been very clear, specifically crystal clear with Nick and Meadows and with Tom Turk, that Tom Turk only works on behalf of the city on the city's dime if a task order comes from city council, and a task order only. I've been clear with that with Nick as well. If they want to hire or consult or whatever with Tom, it's up to him what he prices to them, how they do that. I don't care, as long as it doesn't cost the city without a task order.
And they agreed to that. So.
They have. I just want to make sure it's putting on record.
11 a.m. tomorrow.
11 to 1. Right. Martin's going to have pizza delivered to each one of our locations, so for lunch. So.
Just so they realize that, 2 hours is not going to fly tomorrow.
Hey, brother, if I'm in it, you're in it. I have had several discussions with Nick since the meeting, just as an FYI. I think the comment from one of our council members to my left was that it was apparent that I didn't want to be on the meeting. I did talk to Nick specifically about it, that's not the case. I am all about being on the meeting when it comes to action items and so on. I'm just not a kumbaya guy. I'm sorry. I don't do greetings and things. And me and Nick talked about it, and he is understanding and good with who I am and what I might be and what names I might be called outside of the meeting. So.
As long as we keep a good working relationship.
I have no problem working with any of them. I absolutely do not. And John Ransom and I had some good conversations, and I think there's some good things that can come out of it. Absolutely. I got too many things going on to kumbaya. And I don't do it at home either. My wife does.
Just, it's kind of, just be nice to see your face.
I don't like, my face is behind, I keep the camera behind me for a reason, even here. I don't want to be called out public.
It's part of the civic experience.
Oh, I have lived the experience. Okay, that's all I had to update, unless anybody's got any questions. Do what? He's got it on line items. We're gonna move as long as possible.
All right, so that's it for item number 3 of the staff presentation. Then we will move into the consent agenda with one item being on there, and that's the approval of the minutes from the September 8th and the September 22nd meetings. I think you have the minute in your packets.
Thank you. Thank you. I tried.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Kent to approve the minutes as submitted. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Second for Mrs. Devine. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
All right.
All opposed? No minutes are approved. So on old business, we have consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the following. I think you said we're gonna table number 1, which is discuss and consider action on special event ordinance. So we've already talked about that.
That'll be November 10th meeting.
It'll be in the November meeting, okay? Item number 2 is to discuss and consider action on abandoning 15th Street property easement, the state built access, dwelling.
We'll have to table to the November meeting as well. I think they're waiting on one more signature for the petition. And at that point, we'll go to Brad and make sure everybody's legal and everything else. And
The concept that sounds good on everybody's time.
I think it's just one signature that's needed and then it'll move forward.
All right, so then we will go on to item number 3, which is discuss and consider action on the COVID-19 update and review city mask policy implemented July 14, 2020. So y'all remember when we implemented those rules, we said we were gonna do it for 30 days or so, and kind of see how things are on wearing masks. And so we wanted to revisit it, see if we're still on the same page, and want to extend it to 30 days, whatever we want to do, so. I think I talked to the judge today, and he, he's not ready yet to do the, a lot of counties are already doing away with that policy countywide, and he's not going that route yet, so countywide, we're still on that, so.
I mean, I think, I've checked some cities and things, they're letting the group be over, they have more of their council chambers, and they're letting the group be over 10 people, but they still are maintaining the 6 foot separation in the mask requirements. So I think our current policy is, I feel more comfortable with it and would like to continue it for another 30 days. I'll make a motion for that.
Has anybody seen the latest county numbers?
Last day was October 5th. We haven't updated since then.
October 5th?
Was the last update publicly.
So I talked, 23, 23, active. The active cases, yes.
The one I see it said it's been saying no change, so.
Yeah, so I talked to Ben for a little bit about it today as well. The cases are fluctuating because it's moving quicker than it was before. It's not as, I don't want to be the one that says, but how to say it, but maybe it's the people that are getting infected are not as high risk. Let's say that, or at least it's not lasting very long. Not downplaying it by any means or whatsoever, just it's moving quicker through different people. It originally started in the elderly being more high risk. It moved down to the more college students, then it got into high school and then back into the elderly, and then got a few high school kids, and it's back into the elderly. From what they were saying today is they're looking for another 14 days to kind of evaluate before making a ruling on the mask order. And that's just getting an idea, because we talked about it from approving some events like the Christmas parade and things as well, is not making a firm decision on it for about 14 days so they can see how current trends are going to continue to go. I think that is without saying anything else about the virus, it's just a matter of just wait and see for about 14 days is what they were proposing. Well, we're going to kind of see, the idea would be is give it 14 days for them to evaluate. They may still say, you know what, let's wait until after Halloween, see if there's an impact from that. And again, they may not. If we're down to, minimal cases, and not just us, but surrounding areas, and they get to that 14 days, that's up to the judge and so
Well,
on.
we're voting on or discussing if the city mask policy is.
I'm just informing you of what was.
We'll have a vote. Okay, we got a motion from Mr. Bennett. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Rita?
Any discussion?
Discussion? Not all in favor?
Well, you did say almost 30 days. I just wanted to, you should take that to the next regular.
Well, okay, I'll do that.
Because if you do 30 days, the next regular council meeting is within the.
The 10th.
We'll do that.
I'm sorry. Just.
Okay, put up you do, and then I'll withdraw it after that.
Yeah, because it just. Still going to override that one.
Motion to repeal the previous motion.
I want to make another motion that will supersede the prior motion I just made. So, and basically, this motion will be effective through November the 16th.
10th.
We're meeting on the.
10th.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it can be effective through November, that'll give us time to vote.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's on
All right, so we have a new motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
New second. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor? So it's passing. All right. So new business, we have item number 1, which is discuss and consider action on burning procedure ordinance 2020. Have Matt here to.
Pick your brains. Okay, so currently the city of Blanco doesn't have an ordinance prohibiting outdoor burning. So pretty much the law says that without an ordinance, people can burn or cannot burn. So currently we have people that burn, some people that don't burn. So the goal is to see if we want to either mirror Johnson City's ordinance, which allows no outdoor burning, or if we want to create an ordinance that limits certain outdoor burning.
Question. I do burn outdoors, so I contacted the fire department. They were putting me to the county. Every time I burn, I notify the county to dispatch
Mhm.
that I want to burn, it'll be a full burn. And they ask me if there's a gate and
Mhm.
everything like that. But I do that every time, and then I ask that the fire be fully extinguished prior to dark. And that somebody be on there to attend it all the time. So there is some form of procedure that is implemented.
It's a notification with no implications from a enforcement standpoint. So do you live inside the city or outside the city?
I live inside the city.
So currently by state statute, you cannot burn without an ordinance saying you can. So we allow it because it's been years since anyone said it. So we are kind of trying to look at that right now. So TCEQ says you can't burn within 300 feet of a structure and it can't obstruct any sensitive receptors, which are businesses, people, nursing facilities. I don't want to see as strict as Johnson City. I still think people should be able to have campfires and be able to cook and stuff like that. I just don't think we should have huge burns in the backyard.
I think the last time this came up was a little over a year ago, and it was really driven by some complaints by, I'll say one individual, but at least one individual who was constantly burning leaves in their backyard. So that smoke was carrying over to the Hendrick house, and they were getting a lot of asthma calls and complaints.
Because
I don't have the answer.
so I mean, the city does offer a brush drop off for I think $25,
$25 fee.
and then the city burns it. So
What is Johnson City, basically no burning?
their ordinance states any outdoor fires, whether accidental or purposefully set, are hereby prohibited. The only exceptions are firefighter training, public utility, natural gas burn-offs, or harvested crops. So, for instance, the only one like that is actually Herden's property is the only one with a crop, I think, inside the city limits, I believe. So, I think if we had an ordinance that said outdoor burning is prohibited, the exception is for warmth and for cooking. I mean, there is an exclusion inside the TCQ rules that lay out that paragraph. So.
We have two fire, I have a burn pile and a fire pit at my house. I just couldn't see the day when we couldn't sit around the fire pit at our house.
As it is, well, and I think we could write it in a term that says, you know, fire for warmth within a contained.
Yeah.
So there, I mean, the other caveat, Chief Rubens here is if how we rewrite it is going to be the determination of the officer to interpret it and enforce it and cite on basic. It's a.
Would there be any, if you had 100 acres, you want clear brush, you're gonna have to haul it.
If you had 100 acres in the city, but I don't think anybody has 100 acres in the city. The biggest property y'all own is, well, other than, I think, what's the property? 7 acres? The biggest
9
one?
acres, 9 acres.
And 9 acres, so.
No, even something that we can see, I mean, if you had 100 acres.
I mean, or
Yeah.
something like that, that's still,
Yeah, I mean, big enough to be concerned, I mean.
yeah, I think there ought to be some consideration for the size of a lot of the acreage or something.
We could open it up to a permit that you want to burn. That way the permit process is notifying the fire department to approve and so on.
Yeah.
So a $25 permit to burn or a $25 fee to dump your brush.
Yeah, we were working for the fire, campfire, things like that.
So you,
No, for campfire, for.
you could have the ordinance that said for warmth, for preparation of food, and for agricultural purposes. And for agricultural purposes, then you would have to have, then you could request a permit. And really the permit would be the fire department could go inspect the site, make sure it wasn't too close to a residence or the smoke would block the roadway.
Within the residence?
There's rules, but the whole goal is just to, as we get busier, more people come in, more businesses go up, more subdivisions come in. You're going to drive complaints up. Complaints are going to continue to rise on fires, and then where does the city stand on enforcement on it? So
That's gonna be a tough one.
it is.
I'm just telling you right now.
It is.
I'm already like feeling antsy because, I mean,
Oh, I know.
if I can't, limbs burn, you know, in the backyard, and all of a sudden I have to start getting a permit and inspection, or I have to hire a trailer. I mean, it just becomes, you know, go from working at the yard on the weekend to bureaucratic.
So why don't we,
I don't move into the big city.
So I'm talking about safety on one hand, we also have to deal with least intrusion to people's lives as well, so.
Well, but we're under a situation where technically.
currently, right now, by law, you cannot burn inside the city limits.
Okay,
So
you could enact an ordinance that allows burning in city limits, you still have to notify the county and follow that format. Is that correct?
it's good faith. It's not a requirement. What about, so right now, we act as is, why don't we draft a few different ordinances, 2 or 3, for y'all to review? And y'all review them and see which one sits best with you. We'll make it, we'll make one that's very obvious, no burning. We'll make one that has limitations, and we'll have one with some variables in it, so.
How long of an ordinance is Johnson City?
It's, not very long, because they don't allow any burning, so it's, yeah, so they just pretty much signed it and said no burning. That was in 2000. What's that? Their officers do write citations for burning within the city limits. So like for instance, for the fire department, we have a policy for illegal burning. So if you burn illegal material, there is some wiggle room. If we come out and you agree to it and you have the capability to put it out yourself, then it's good. And then if we have to extinguish the illegal burn, then we issue a fine. There are some gives and takes. You can't burn your boat down, yeah. We had some people burn a whole boat, so yeah, different things like that. Mm-hmm, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So as long as y'all are up for the opportunity to review some burning ordinances and decide on something. So.
So I guess the 3 hours together.
Yes, it'll take all 3. Definitely.
I understand we need something, but like it was said.
You just need something that if it does become a nuisance, it allows for fire department and police department to take care of the situation.
They may need to follow up what you can and can't. Like if something just grew on that property, you cut the tree down, and then maybe you burn it.
Maybe the fire, it has to, or the burn, it has to be rained.
Yeah, we can do.
Some type of, mitigation.
Sounds good. We will work on it.
Even that, they have a little portable. Yeah.
When it's wet and I think they call in, there's notification, there's no burn ban and everything. They'll it'll be on in a couple hours. That's it.
Same with plants, I say, I have all year.
But you got to realize is that while it puts the fire department takes calls on it, so does PD take calls on it. And it's not calls that, hey, that fire is dangerous if you're burning over there. The calls are about, this guy's been smoking me out all weekend and I have a bad asthma. And that's going to get worse and worse and worse.
And that's in the administrative code, any sensitive receptor that the person business.
Just wait till Wendy does it, right?
No.
Depends on which way the wind blows.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, well, if you want, yeah, I mean, it goes all the way into detail where how much wind you need to burn and how much wind you can't burn in. So, I mean, it's thick, the rules for burning, so.
I'm more worried about people shooting fireworks directly on my house.
Well,
Why?
that's y'all's ordinance that allows it.
Or you want better ones? Tell me.
We'll work on it. We'll come back with something. Any other questions?
Questions on that? So now we'll see how we can come up with the ordinance or a couple of options for us to look at. So then we have new business, item number 2, which is discuss and consider action on revisions to personnel policy, work period for police officers, age 24 to 26. So is this you, chief, or is this for?
Okay.
And I don't have it in front of me.
24, 25.
See, all the stuff I knew I was gonna talk about, I blew up in big fonts and I have to put my glasses on. You like that? Yeah. Taught my phone how to do that too. So basically the policy currently states that they'll get overtime in excess of, no, that is correct. Yeah, that is correct. We did correct it. That is the way it's supposed to be.
284, wasn't it?
Yeah, they get overtime and exceeds 84.
What did it? Oh,
It used to be 80,
I
yeah.
typed that.
Yeah. This is the revised, so this is correct.
This is the revised.
Yep. So how did we mess that up again?
No, I corrected it to that. It
Oh,
currently
oh,
says
there it
80.
says 80. Okay.
Okay, so whatever you underline.
Whew. All right. I was like,
Well,
why are we
yeah.
talking about this?
What I underlined is what it's gonna be changed to.
Okay,
Sorry.
got you. No problem. Threw me off. So currently the officers who are assigned to patrol work 84 hours in the pay period. So FLSA says that there's a police and fire exemption. And the police and fire exemption says that police officers can work 171 hours in a 28-day work cycle before they're entitled to overtime. And you can do the math on that. So if you take the 28 days, divide it by 14, because we're paid every 2 weeks, they can work, is it 87? Sorry, they can work 87 hours in a pay period before they're entitled to overtime. They were getting overtime anything over 80. So they were getting, every pay period, they're getting 4 hours of overtime. So when we submitted the budget, I think I mentioned this in the budget. So we added up what those hours were and changed that hourly rate to incorporate what they were making, because I didn't want anyone to lose money. But moving forward, this will help us to save money because the overtime threshold is further. So this really just kind of cleans up what y'all authorized in the budget, but the language was wrong in the policy manual. If that makes sense.
So what you're doing is just, you're gonna allow them to do 40 hours a week, 42 hours a week, cumulative of 84.
Well, it's not in a week. So for us, it's a pay period. So for 14 days, they'll work 84. The officers assigned to patrol are scheduled to work 84 hours in that 14-day cycle. So normally you don't pay overtime when they're scheduled to work that. So this just gets us.
Okay, this would not change what we're paying the officers at this time.
Correct. When you all approved the budget, the math was already incorporated into the salaries.
So this just goes to match that. Our current policy says 80 hours and it should read 84.
So on page 24, 25, 26.
Is what the new policy
And you're
will
gonna
be.
change the number 80 to 84 on each of those pages.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you all.
I move that we make some modifications to pages 24, 25, 26, as recommended by the chief, changing the number 80 hours to 84 hours on each page.
Ready? We have a motion for Mr. Smith. Do we have a second? I'll second. Second for Mr. McSherman. We need a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, no opposed. Right with that. So, since that was all we have for a regular session, so at 7:08, we will end the regular meeting and go into executive session in accordance with the Texas Government Code, in accordance with the authority contained in Code Section 551.071. In consultation with the city attorney, in Section 1.05, Texas disciplinary rules, professional conduct. So, go into executive session.
All right, give me a minute.
This conference will now be recorded.
It's open. I gotta wait on the live stream. There we go. Okay.
All right. So at 8:12, we will reopen the regular meeting and we will discuss the, item number 1 in executive session. We have no action for item number 1, which was confer with the attorney regarding legal issues associated with water treatment plant project.
And for item number 2, which is confer with city attorney regarding legal issues associated with wastewater treatment plant permit application. Do we have any motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion, that we direct our city attorney to proceed as directed in executive session in regards to wastewater treatment plant permit application WQ 00105490002.
Get that right? All right, so we have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, no? All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to end this. I'll make a motion. You make a motion to adjourn. To adjourn, by Mr. Bennett, you have a second? Second by Here.
Aye.
Official time, and woo, 2:15, that's not bad.
They might not our pay if we get out
I think so.
early. We should get bonuses for saving. Money, you know,
Thank you, Brad. Chief, sir, Chief, so